Okay.
All right, here we go, Andy.
Okay.
We're live, Andy.
Welcome to the penultimate day of the 49er World Championships in Buenos Aires. We're just a minute or so away from the start of race 2 in the Gold Fleet finals. My name's Andy Rice, and with me are 49er veterans Marcus Bauer and out in Argentina, Ben Ramoca. Ben, just tell us what the scene is out there as we come up to this start. Ben, if you can hear us.
If we can't hear him, I can get him back in. He probably has to unmute.
Marcus, what do you see on the tracking from your perspective?
The start, we can switch to the tracking, and the start is on in just a few seconds. I'm going to zoom in a second, and let's see who's coming out on top at this start. It looks fairly crowded. Start is off.
It's been a long wait for this to get going. The breeze has been extremely unstable, and we were just looking at some of the analysis from the previous race that happened an hour or so ago.
Sorry, let me get the right race up. I was just in the wrong race. I'll be with you in a minute.
And what we could see from the previous race was that on the same tack, some boats from side to side across from left to right on the course were sailing at 50 degrees angle difference from one side to the other. So it's pretty wacky races out there at times.
Yeah, it is super shifty.
And so light winds predominantly. It's been in Buenos Aires for the last week or so. Just had a message from Ben to call him back. Just to explain, I'm in the UK. Marcus Bauer is in Germany, and we have Ben Ramoca, who we're trying to get in touch with now, live on site in Buenos Aires in Argentina. So this is quite an international operation that we're running here. And so it's an experiment, but we hope that we can bring you some good coverage. Marcus, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just
Sorry,
getting Ben back in.
Okay. And
Go ahead,
you're
Andy.
Ben back in, the short story is that in the men's division, there is, as usual, a standout performing team. And to anyone who follows 49er racing regularly, it won't be any surprise to hear that it's that team from New Zealand, Pete Burling and Blair Duke, that looks set to make this World Championships their third consecutive World Championship victory, and also their 22nd consecutive victory in the 49er fleet, continuing an unbroken run of victories in the 49er class that goes back almost 3.5 years to when they got that silver medal in London 2012. Now, sounds like we might have the sound of somebody on the water there. So, Ben, if you can hear us.
I sure can. I'm actually 3 or 4 boat lengths behind Burling and Duke, who you were just talking about. They had a rough start. They're already 3 tacks into their beat, but they are on the side of the course, and we've seen right pressure and a right shift this so far this beat that has eliminated some of Eric Heil's dominant start. He is still leading a good group, but he was even farther ahead earlier until a right shift came in and allowed teams like Diane of France, John Pink of Great Britain, and the Irish duo Seaton McGovern to get up into the front row. Meanwhile, Burling and Duke had a really rough start to the race, buried at the start, couldn't get a lane, tacked and got tacked on twice. But they've now managed to get to the far right side of the course, and we've seen the guys from the right do well so far, including possibly the Japanese and the Phillips brothers, who are on the extreme right.
Marcus, what are you seeing on the tracking?
Nothing yet. I'll be with you in a moment about it. Right now, the best information we have is what we get off the water from Ben.
We also see Dylan Fletcher here coming in from the far left. So he's under-hipped on Eric Heil. Those are the two leftmost boats now in the leading pack. So looks like there might have been a left shift. I mean, if there is, then Heil's been sailing basically the perfect beat, taking the shift and in the pressure. But we'll see what happens here. They're converging on the windward mark, probably only 2 minutes away, and the final shift could well determine which pack is going to lead the way.
Must be a really short course then, Ben.
The breezes, we got a good bit of puffs 300 meters into the beat. So yeah, the course will be shorter than it was set for because the breeze strength is up. Just seeing Dien of France tack on a righty. He's now going back left, and I think he's going to cross Fletcher and Heil. So right now he's the lead boat. The Japanese, who I was talking about on the far right side, they've overstood. So now they're reaching in from the top. Burling and Tuke, no surprise, have got the ley line right. They're gonna be top 10 at the mark, which, considering where they came from, is a great accomplishment. As the teams now come in and set up on the starboard line and they're already on the port ley line. Irish have just tacked on the ley line. They're in the top 5. Pink's underneath the Irish, slightly ahead. Looks to me like Dien or Fletcher or Heil is going to be first at the mark here. Dien goes for his tack, and Fletcher goes inside him. So Fletcher's first around the mark. Heil has to duck both of them, and he'll tack around in third. Next up is going to be Seaton McGovern, followed by John Pink. So that's your top 5, all big names. They're straight setting for now.
So that's a bit better for the British because it's not been a terribly good regatta for the British so far, but it sounds like 2 British teams doing very well in this race so far. And I understand that the British coach, the head coach, Stephen Park, aka Sparky, showed up today in Argentina. So presumably that puts the pressure on a little bit more when the headmaster's in town.
Well, I think his role here is actually more putting pressure on myself, Andy. I think he's here to adjudicate and make sure that all the world championships are fair, that his teams are competing in. Just to clarify my earlier statements, there must have been a lefty at the end here. Burling and Tuke didn't make the mark from their tight ley line and are now buried. They're getting shuttled out into the back 5 as we see all the teams from the far left corner, even those overstood, way ahead of them. They've had to duck their second last. So Burling and Tuke haven't got it right.
Well, I did wonder when you said that they got the ley line right. I wondered if that was a little bit too early to have got the ley line right. And they suffered a similar problem in race 2 during qualifying. It's the only other race where things have really gone wrong. But they judged the ley line correctly from a long way out. But it didn't seem to take account of the fact that other boats were going to come across from the left-hand side and probably tack on their line and give them bad breeze. And I just wonder if these guys spend so little time at the back of the fleet that maybe they forget that sometimes your tactics have to be different.
Well, that's certainly what it looked like in terms of their ley line. Clear sailing, they could have made it. Once all the boats stacked in there, they definitely couldn't. I also think they might have...
Say that again.
I also think that they may have been looking to jibe set there, but then a bunch of guys got inside them on the jibe set. So now they're just in the row with everyone else, cruising downwind. They've just gone for their jibe now. So, they're downwind speed. They'll probably manage to pass a couple, but not a promising position for them. At the front of the fleet, nothing's changed. Everyone's straight set. We just had our first person jibe back. That's Pete McGovern. And now everyone else has followed suit. Dien is jibed back, and our leaders, Fletcher, is jibed back. Not looking like a tremendous amount of pressure that they've all jibed in. In fact, I can see Dien standing up and kind of hoping his, and I can see the British are both crouching in quite low. But there doesn't appear to be too much better pressure elsewhere in the fleet either. So maybe it's maybe it's all that could be expected.
But do you know if there's any current on the course?
There is a small upwind current, probably no more than 1 or 2 boat lengths per minute.
The interesting pattern about the way that they're sailing all downwind in a row down on starboard jibe is that no one seems to be able to get down inside anybody else. Normally, you look over your shoulder in these flaky conditions and worry that someone who rounded behind you is going to get a gust and be able to hold you on from jibing. But it looks like there's something going on that is sort of stacking the boats up very nicely, very neatly, but also making it easier for the leaders to defend their lead.
Well, yeah, I guess a current pushing you back upwind might do that. Good observation, Andy. 6 to 7 knots.
So we have 6 to 7 knots. The tracking currently has Highland Plössl. The tracking currently has Highland Plössl in the lead.
The first of our jibe setters was Nathan Outeridge, and he is doing really well here. He's actually only 150 meters behind Seton McGovern, and he's just taken another jibe farther left. So it seems like on the downwind, left could be the ticket. Well, the right side upwind.
How would you say that the regatta has gone so far for Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen?
It's been a mixed regatta for them. To their credit, Ian was quite ill, some sort of localized food poisoning or maybe something from the water on day 2. Barely was able to sail those races. He got shuttled in and out in a rib immediately before the racing and after racing. Nathan ended up sailing out and in by himself. So from that point of view, good for him for being a trooper. Well, he certainly is a trooper in all situations. They did come up clutch in the final 2 races of qualifying with their two second place finishes to close out the qualifying, and that they were in serious danger of missing the gold fleet, even with 1 race to go in qualifying, which would have been quite a change.
Guys, are we witnessing the worst race in a long, long time for Blair and Tuke? I think they're pretty much down in second last position right now.
I think you're right, Marcus. I mean, they had a pretty awful race in the qualifying. They finished in 18th in race 2 of qualifying. Apart from that, their scores have been sensationally consistent up at the top end of the scoreboard. So, yeah, we don't see this very often. And it's always interesting to see what those guys are able to achieve when they've got so much work to do.
Okay, Leeward Gate rounding now. It's Fletcher and Sign rounding first.
Ryan Seaton and Matt McGovern, Ireland 8, going round just behind them in second place. And Germany 12, that would be Eric Harlan, Thomas Plössl being the first to take the left-hand gate. And Ben Ramoka was just commenting on how far to one side, to the left of the run, the Aussies, Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen had done. Now, I don't know what their position was at the top mark, but it looks like they're going to go round in about 8th place, 7th or 8th place.
They rounded 3rd at the windward mark. Well, at least that's what we got noted down. I don't know if Ben saw him in the same place. Interesting how the Germans now head out to the left-hand side of the course.
The Germans are just passing me right now, and they've been really headed in the last 30 seconds. Pink just tacked. He was on the line behind them, and Marco just tacked. He was following out here, too. Eric is digging in even farther, though.
Yeah, we can see the big header now in the tracking. Big header. Is he also slower?
Yeah, he was slower. He just tacked, so he's finally rescued himself.
Marcus, the pattern that we're looking at now, if you look at the difference in track between Germany 12 on the left and GBR 33 on the right, we saw a very similar pattern to this analysing the previous race, where there was almost a 50-degree angle difference between boats that were both on starboard tack. And it doesn't look good at this stage for Eric Harl. He's almost sailing back down the line he just came on, having just tacked. But maybe he's fast. Maybe he's got a good breeze on that side.
I think he's getting back out of jail there.
they're double trapping now. Eric Highland Floatzel are double trapping, and they are not challenging Fletcher and Sign, but they're up on the level of Pink. So as they come together, it's worked out pretty nicely.
Yeah, so
really chopped.
Far away, Ben. So it doesn't look so bad now in terms of the angle difference from side to side across the course, Marcus. Would you agree? It's not quite as flaky as it was looking.
Well, maybe a little bit better, but it reminds me of the last race that we witnessed. It is still very shifty, judging from the trails that we see out on the water. Now on the right-hand side, big right-hand shift as well. Boats going high there. Still very, very shifty.
But are you able to put your cursor on the boats from extreme left to extreme right and just get a sense of if there's any boat speed difference?
Yeah, let's go to the extreme left. I got 5.3 knots on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side it's 6.3 on one boat. Then another boat 5.1. Not a huge difference in boat speed. Not a clear
right
pattern
now.
for
I can see the far left are both sailors in, and on the far right there's a pup. So people are double trapping, and in the middle it's 1.5 trapping. And Burling and Tuke have dug in to the far right again, whereas most of the leaders continue to try and get left at every stage. Actually, I can now see Nathan Outeridge has come in from the middle right and forced Pinky to tack back with him. He's on starboard, and Pinky had to tack underneath him. So there's certainly no agreement on how the best way to get up this course is. We've got guys like Pink and Fletcher playing the middle. Seems like they want to head left quite a bit. Outeridge is now into the front row of this race, as is Marco Grail. And then we've got guys like Burling continue to try and dig right, or maybe they're just forced that way because the leaders are going left.
It doesn't look like there's much of a way back for Burling and Tuke at this stage, but again, I guess you could argue with the wind offering as many opportunities, a lot of snakes and ladders here. Maybe there is a way back in, but at the moment they haven't made enormous ground back into the leaders.
Well, they're certainly going much more forward than the Germans. The Germans have gone back. At the moment, I have them down in 13th place, 14th place actually, and they came from 3rd. So they're having a terrible upwind. Heading out to the left after that gate didn't prove to be a good move at all, and they're just crossing. They're just crossing Burling and Tuke right now in the middle of the course. So Burling and Tuke are recovering a little bit. They're back in the top 20 at least.
Who's the boat out on the far left? Just checking now, the pink boat, because I'm sure that boat's made some gains, hasn't it?
That's the Polish team, Przypatek and Koliczynski.
So the left hasn't worked out too badly for them. I wonder if Eric Kyle and Thomas Flussel have played it too far up the middle.
Yeah, probably.
For Dylan Fletcher and Alan Sign, TBR 33, that have led for much of this race, this must be a very, very difficult race to be able to defend. They're pretty much in the centre of the fleet, the sort of the gravity of the fleet, but they must feel like they're vulnerable from both sides.
They've just undertacked John Pink, so they've lee-bowed Pink again, which is at least the second time on this beat that those two have forced each other to do something else. So I wonder how much Fletcher's just playing the fleet. I mean, Pink is in second place versus how much Fletcher is playing his teammate, who he needs to play against. But the two of them have done a really nice job of surviving in what's pretty chaotic conditions. Meanwhile, as I say that, I suspect the Japanese are going to take the lead here from the right side.
What's the tracking telling you, Marcus? It looks like it's indicating something similar, and they might be on their final ley line.
Well, they're closing into the windward mark. Let me bring that back up. And it looks like Fletcher and Sign have lost the lead against the Japanese team coming in from the right-hand side. Yep, Japanese have taken the lead.
So, yes, Dylan Fletcher and Alan Stein having to give up the lead, but in a race like this, you'd probably still be happy if you could finish second. And it looks like they're very, very close with the Japanese. Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen also amongst the top few, so they're managing to sail a good, consistent race. They've made a few back on this beat because they rounded in about 7th or 8th place at the bottom gate.
Japanese now covering Fletcher and Sign.
Maybe you guys can help me out if what's going on here with angle versus pressure, but it seems like a lot of teams are willing to take transoms and come to the left, even though the Japanese have come from the top right. So for some reason, people seem to be willing to dig left. Do you know what reason that would be right now?
No, that's a very good point, though. I mean, it looks like a lot of the front runners are very much on the left-hand ley line. And yes, it does beg the question, if it's so good on the left, how did the Japanese do so well from the right?
I mean, the Japanese lead must be 80 meters right now, or 50.
And forcing Dylan Fletcher and Alan Stein to tack away, it certainly does look very expensive for the British, because the Japanese, with the Brits were right on the transom of the Japanese just a few moments ago, and yet the Japanese have managed to make the British pay very hard for that small bit of bad air.
Fletcher's coming in second to the mark. We've got Poland 42, Lucas, and Powell just holding off Marco and Pink. It looks like they're actually going to get rolled here. The Japanese have now jibed back to come from the side that they took the lead on, as Fletcher jibed set. So Fletcher's jibed set on a higher lane than the Japanese. We'll see how that fares on the downwind. Polish have jibed set. Marco's going to go straight, and so is Pink.
And have you seen the Kiwis, Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, lately, Ben?
Burling and Tuke are in last, and they're in a small dogfight with the Croatians, but it's looking really bad for them. They looked to have a decent lane, but just decided to dig in left, and right was the play. Like Burling and Tuke are so far back, I don't think they're going to get better than 23rd or 24th in this race, if they're not last.
Wow. So they are mortal after all.
Yeah, they haven't got either of the beats right, or either of the downwinds in this race. Well, we don't know about the last downwind for them, but about as rough as you've ever seen them sail, yeah.
Marcus,
seems like they were sailing very tight.
Marcus, it'd be good if you could highlight Spain 46, the Alonso brothers, because they're the ones that are very much in contention with Pete Burling and Blair Tuke for the world title. So if we can find out how Spain 46 is doing in this race, that would be interesting to know, because I think
Okay, I got him right here. They are currently, I'd say, in 5th place.
So I'm pretty sure that's going to make them the overall leaders at the end of this race in that case.
Well, I could have a look at the preliminary results in a second.
Ben, how many discards do we have for this regatta if it's a full series?
There will be, once we have 4 races in the gold fleet, there'll be a discard.
And so how does the discard work? Do you discard 1 from your qualifiers and 1 from your finals?
Yeah.
Okay. And the Alonso brothers have been around forever, so why don't we know more about them? Here they are vying for the World Championship lead, and they're not exactly a household name, are they?
No, the Alonso brothers were Iker and Xavi's training partner, and sailed well, number of top tens at World, but never able to emerge from the shadow of Iker and Xavi. And then, sure enough, as soon as Iker and Xavi retired, a bunch of other Spanish have come on the game. There's four good Spanish teams here, and they're in a trial system, a mathematical trial system, for the first time in a while. It's not going to be a panel like it often was in Spain, and they're certainly having a good time to sail a good regatta. But they're only periodically in the game. They spend a lot of regattas completely off it. I was chatting with them yesterday, and they were wearing jackets that they won from their podium finish at the North Americans this year. But I would guess they haven't been in any other podiums all year. And yet here they are within striking distance of the lead of the World Championship. So I think light air has always been their game. And this has been a lighter air world. But with their experience, you'd think over time they'd have gotten a little more famous anyways. But they're certainly some of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, and very understated. So their notoriety reflects that somewhat.
It's a good regatta overall for the Spanish squad, isn't it? They're the only country that has 3 teams in the top 10 at this stage of the World Championships. And yet you wouldn't say that any of those 3 teams are really first division players. They're not likely contenders for a World Championship. And yet we've got 3 different Spanish teams in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, all 3 Spanish teams are my favorites. The Paz brothers are awesome, and Anton is a gold medalist from the Tornado. Never really done too much in the 49er, other than just sail consistently, reasonably well. And then you've got this young guy, Diego Botten, showed flashes of brilliance in the youth racing. Didn't have the muscle to get it done in the seniors, so he got his new crew, Iago, who's a strapping lad, and he was top 10 at Palma this year. I think he was also top 10 at Pierre, but not in the hunt for a title at this stage, or so you'd think. But having another good regatta.
Now, it's been a strange old year for Highland Plussel from Germany, hasn't it? Eric Highland, Thomas Plussel, former European champions in 2013 and 2014, I think. But not such a good European championship this year. And it was a different German team that took the European title. That was Justus Smith and Max Boomer, and those young Germans are not even in the. They didn't even make the cut for Gold Fleet. I mean, it's just incredible how people can be on song for one regatta and then suddenly be out of it the next.
Well, it's really crazy to think about the level of 49er sailing right now. And as we speak here, I'm pretty sure the Japanese and Marco Grail Marco Grail has won this race after a straight set with the Japanese coming in second.
Well, we can see him in the tracking. We can see him in the tracking crossing the finish line in just a few seconds.
Anyways, yeah.
Speaking of the incredible performance, I mean, that makes it even more incredible how the guys from New Zealand have performed recently. And this is probably the first race where we've seen them a little bit vulnerable. They're down in 20th place still. 19th, 20th. So probably their worst race in a long, long time.
Yeah, they had an 18th in qualifying, and I'd say they're going to be up in about 20th here. Interestingly, Eric Heil and Thomas Closer are the closest boat to them. So
yeah, they're down in 16th right now.
Leading around the leeward mark, you can fall all the way down to 20th by getting it wrong, or 19th. It's a very competitive fleet. We had guys like Stevie Morrison not make the Gold Fleet here. we had Justus Schmidt and Max Buma, European silver medalists, not making the podium here. No, they were bronze medalists. Zink almost didn't make the gold fleet, had to fight his way in on a protest. Same with Deanne and Christidis. So there's just an awful lot of talent in 49er sailing right now, and you've got to get it right. Even Burling and Tuch will say that. Almost none of their 21 wins have been going away. They've had to fight for an awful lot of them, and they've even recently had to win on the final day a number of times. So it's just tight. The boats are tight. The sailors are skilled, and it's a mature class now.
I thought this was going to be a runaway world title for them, but you see a performance like that in this race just now, and you wonder whether it is going to be after all.
You know what's crazy is I see the Irish here who have been beaten by Burling, and they were about first round the Leeward mark, right?
Yeah, they were certainly in the top two early on in this race, weren't they? They were.
Burling and Tuch must have been second last around the last Windward mark here, and they've passed at least 8 boats on this downwind.
And they're very close to Eric Carl and Thomas Plussel that were also in the top 3 of this race at one point as well. So there has been an awful lot of snakes and ladders in that race that we've been watching just then.
I have the still has
Let's also not forget about the race for the Olympic qualification, of which the Polish, the Germans, the Japanese, the Argentines are all very focused on at this stage of the regatta as well. Argentines, Belgium, yes, we're going to have 3 automatic qualifiers. Let's not forget the Croatians and the Belgians. So that rounds out all the teams fighting. That's right. And there's a second Argentinian team. There's a second Argentinian team and a second Polish team.
Das ist gar nicht so schlecht. Gib mir nur ein Zeichen, wenn du die Overall Results, die offiziellen dann reinkriegst, ne?
Yes, everyone's finished. The race committee don't look the pin boats or the start boats being placed right now. So it looks like they're happy to roll straight into something or to the next race right away. Windward mark, I think, has been moved left a bit. Maybe you guys can confirm that. But I would say they will get into the next race just as soon as they can.
So, Ben, how much do you think that these countries that are looking to qualify here, how much are they thinking about how well they do in a world championship, and how much are they thinking about Olympic qualification? And do you think that when they have a tactical decision about do I tack on this boat or do I tack on that boat, that in the back of their minds they're aware that some boats are their Olympic rivals and others aren't, in the sense that they may already have qualified a spot for the country.
Well, my guess is that the Olympic qualification is very much on their mind ahead of their finish placing here at the championship. But I'd also say that at this stage of the regatta, you know that just having good races is the best way to secure that berth. So they may not be paying very much attention to the individual or their opponents for nation qualifying as of yet, and still be playing some open races. Maybe in the final race or two for the guys in third country, fourth country, fifth country, they might get into it with each other. But at this stage, it'd be foolhardy to prioritize a boat within a 25 boat or a 26 boat fleet over another.
Have the Spanish already qualified from the Santander Worlds last year?
Yes, they have.
Okay. And the biggest surprise to me is that the Germans haven't already qualified, but was that because of injury in the Heil Plussel camp last year?
Yeah, Thomas Plussel was injured, stepped on a piece of glass while training in Santander, and couldn't race the World Championship. Eric did bring in a young crew to sail with him, but they didn't make Gold Fleet. And it was if you remember, it was also a very odd qualifying with only two fleets of 40 boats or 46 boats and only 2 days of racing. So probably not the fairest test. Guys like Dylan Fletcher finished in about 75th or 80th or something. So there were some errors there were some intricacies with last year's qualifying. But yeah, and the Germans and the Polish have got to be shocking they haven't qualified. I mean, both those teams had 2 teams each in the top 10 in Porto. And as we can see, they're each have a team in the top 4 here right now. So we're talking about some of the very best sailors in the world still needing to qualify for the Olympics.
And we're focused on the men for the moment, but what are your observations so far this week in the 49er FX? Mine would be that if Denmark doesn't win an Olympic medal next year at Rio 2016, then something's gone badly wrong, because they, as a squad, are right up there in this World Championship, aren't they?
Oh yeah, the Danish squad. I wrote a piece on this a couple of days ago. Have done something that almost all the nations try to do and almost none of the nations manage to pull off. And that is they've got their entire squad to be the best in the world and remain friends with each other under a single coach and continue sharing openly. Inevitably, as good as British squads have been, or Spanish squads, or anyone, at this stage of the quadrennial, they've all given up and decided to fight for Olympic qualification. But these girls haven't. They've stuck together. And for better or worse, only one of them's going to get to go to the games, and they sure as heck hope that one wins a gold medal. And they've bought in. And talking to them about it, that's been their mantra in the Danish Sailing Association since these girls were in their early teenage years or even younger, 12, 13, 14 years old. Already, their nation was telling them, you have to share. It's the only way to do it, and they fully bought in. I mean, these girls, they don't just like each other and dinner with each other. They live together. They travel together. They pull pranks on each other. It's genuine, and they also are very competitive individuals, so they don't hold back racing against one another. And that's the strength and depth of that squad. But to say if they don't win a medal, it'd be a travesty, I think, puts a bit of a point on what's happening in Rio. And I think that's going to be a hard regatta to win. I don't think there's going to be that many races. And I assume it'll be very shifty and probably pretty light. And we've seen vulnerabilities of Ida and Marie, the current leaders in the light, typically. So still plenty of work to do.
Well,
guys, I think we're on for the next.
And would we not consider that Buenos Aires to be a light airs regatta at the moment? Because out of the races they've done, 9 races they've done, they've won 6 of them. That doesn't seem too shabby to me.
The FX sailing has got the better of it so far. So they've had certainly the first day where they had 4 races. That was all in 4 feet on the rail sailing, if not champagne sailing. And then on day 3, they also got the better of the wind. So it hasn't been as light an affair in the FX as it has been in the 49er, although they're sailing at the same time now.
Guys, I think we're back in phase for the next race. But as we spoke about the FX, we can just briefly look at the result table. In the lead, we still have Nielsen Olsen from Denmark that we just spoke about with 30 points overall. The Spanish team just caught up quite a bit. 33 points, only a 3-point lead left at the moment, and the reigning world champions Grail and Kunze with 35 points in 3rd place. The other Danish team in 5th and 7th place, and that's what you spoke about. I mean, that is an incredible squad performance with 3 boats in the top 10 in a very international fleet of 49er FXs. But I think we're not so far away from the next race. So Ben, maybe you can talk us through the conditions a little bit of what we can expect in this race.
Yeah, by my eye, it's maybe a knot more wind speed than what we saw the race finish in, which is probably 2 knots more than we saw the last race start in, probably in the 8-knot range. All of the 49ers are within 5 boat lengths of the line right now, and they're all within the boundary of the start and finish boats. So they're coming up on their final positions as they prepare to defend and try and win a lane out of the start. Big sag right now. I can see Diego Botten lining up to try and win the boat. Also, Eric Heil is just lined up inside him, so he'll be trying to win the boat. We have, as Andy mentioned, an upwind current right now. So the teams are farther back from the line than you'd normally expect. As we hit the 1 minute to go marker, sorry, you guys are probably a tiny bit delayed, so I'll try not to reference that. The guys are doing a good job of holding back. They're going to need their runway to get off the line here, and to stay without a U flag, because if you're over, you're done. I'm just seeing Eric Heil and Thomas Closel do a loop at the boat end, and they may not be quick enough. I have a feeling Manu Dien might steal their spot. No, he's gone in underneath Botten. So tight contest here. I'm just trying to take a look for where the Alonsos are. They're in the battle for the boat, and Burling and Tuke. Outeridge is trying to win the pin. He's currently the pin boat. Can't see Burling.
No, Burling is further up at the boat. He's on the right-hand side of the line.
Okay, I can't see him. He must be hidden behind the sails. They're starting to accelerate now. Outeridge has got his bow down. He's holding back. He's a little late for the line, but Outeridge has won the pin here. And Eric Heil's got walked out at the boat end of the line. Manu Dien ended up winning the boat end. With that upwind current, you got to set up a little farther down. Botten, he didn't make it round. He's packed out. But the Alonsos have had a decent start. And Burling, he was in the front row, but he's just got pinched out by Poland 42, Lucas and Powell.
Ben, talk to us about the conditions. How do you think they're going to evolve over the day? We're looking currently at the tracking, and the start's going to be on in like 30 seconds in the tracking. So talk to us about the conditions.
Okay, they're 4 feet on the wire, crouching, so that puts it at about 7 or 8 knots. I think the wind's going to build through the day, and I bet you Silverfleet's going to have a great time later this afternoon. But right now, they're fully powered up. I can't see a lot of deviations in angle. So, probably sea breeze is now in and just needs to strengthen. I can see some cumulus clouds under what otherwise is a blue sky. And, I think we'll build to, it could be 15 knots by the time we get done.
So what we can see is that Burling didn't came out of a super flash spot. He had a very conservative start, which seems to be, is that a pattern that we see more often from him, that he doesn't start right at the ends?
we have seen him absolutely nail the pin in one of the qualifying races earlier on in the week, but one of his favourite starts seems to be somewhere up near the committee boat and in a position where he's able to tack off out to the right fairly early. It looks like from what we're seeing at the moment, there's a boat on his right-hand shoulder that is going to stop him from doing that on this occasion. So it looks like Burling is being forced further to the left than maybe he would want to be. And we also, in stronger winds than we've got today, we do see Burling prepared to start on port tack underneath the starboard tack boats near the committee boat, what Ben Ramoka calls the port tack option, which won an awful lot of races in Porto in Portugal earlier this year, when getting out to the right-hand side as soon as you could was the absolute priority. So he's able to mix it up. I don't think Burling and Tuke are that predictable in how they start, whereas I think that there are some other top-level players that tend to do the same kind of start, almost regardless of what the conditions are.
Ben, could you mute your microphone when you're not speaking?
Marcus, when we've looked at maybe more stable conditions than this, is that Burling and Tuke seem to have a pretty high mode when they're sailing upwind. They seem to be able to sail the same speed as other boats around them, but just go 1 or 2 degrees higher, which tactically puts them in a very strong position. But
yeah,
maybe
well,
not
we've sort of been searching for the pattern of what makes them perform so well, and that's something that might be identifiable, is that yeah, that they just pinch a little bit higher, but not at a dramatic speed loss.
But it looks like the dominant players of the previous Olympic cycle, Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen, the reigning Olympic champions, who got a good pin end start, have tacked across into the middle of the course. And Australia 3 looks like it's certainly in the top 2. There's a boat, a red boat on the right-hand side. We could highlight that one, Marcus. It'd be good to know who that is. But it looks to me like that's Botín and Lopez from Spain. On the right-hand side of the course. So Botín and Lopez vying for the lead with the Australians, but it looks to me like the Australians at the moment have the early lead in this race. And that's good news for fans of Outridge and Jensen, because this is the kind of performance that they need. They are 13th overall going into this race, so they will be expecting a lot better than that. The first priority is for the Australians to be able to get into the medal race tomorrow.
Ben,
I'm just following in Tuke up the middle of the course here. As you guys were saying, they're sailing a tight line, not really in a very good lane, and guys are on their wind that they've just come back. They're again sort of letting guys cross and just trying to get out into some open wind they can let off, but they've just been packed on again by the Alliance. So far, they're up, in the top group of boats, having had a very mediocre start and no lane so far as I can tell. And that's a special talent right there. I mean, we can talk all we want about how dominant they are when they get out in the lead, but for them to be anywhere even close to this race is phenomenal, because as far as I can tell, they haven't done anything right yet. They're just, other than sail fast in bad lane, which is probably the most important skill you can have.
Yeah, that sure is a nice skill to have. It's one that I've never discovered. I call that magic. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, Marcus. You probably have. You've won major championships in the 49er. Do you know it when you have it?
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, obviously, most sailors, that's their main objective. They're working on their speed, because strategy and tactics just become so much easier when you have it. And so I can assure you, once you do, you know what it feels like, and then being able to stay in a sticky spot and survive there. That's what you need in order to come out of these tricky situations. And we have, at the moment, if we focus in on Burling and Tuke, we can see what sort of sticky spot he really is. Let me bring that up. He is currently being covered by the Spanish team, and he's just staying there. He just wants to survive there. And he does.
And it looks to me, I don't know if it's too easy to draw false conclusions, but it does look to me like the purple trail of New Zealand 1 is able to go that little bit higher than the Spanish 46, the guys that they're vying with for this championship.
Yeah, definitely.
So that is one awesome weapon to have if you can do that. To be able to sail a one-design boat like a 49er significantly higher and faster than your competitors, that's pretty devastating.
Yep, and they're just staying there. It seems like it's the strategic position they favor, and they just don't want to break away from it, and they're just staying in the bad air of the Spanish boat. They just keep going.
And it's 23 points back to the third place Langer brothers, the Argentinians, in the overall standings. So if we were going into a medal race after this race, or if this was a medal race, the only two contenders for the gold and silver medal are Spain 46 and Brazil 1. And there they are, very close together in this race. But those two teams are a long, long way out ahead of the rest of the fleet in the overall standings. One of the other things, Marcus, that marks out the great from the good is that it's quite easy for a lot of teams to be really good in one particular set of conditions, but to be able to be world class across all conditions from light to medium to strong winds, there's very few teams that can do that. And Ben Ramoka was saying earlier that he believes that these light wind conditions are playing to the strengths of the Spanish Alonso brothers, but maybe if we saw a bigger mix of conditions, they wouldn't be able to take the heat compared with Burling and Schuck, who don't seem to have any chinks in their armour.
Yeah, definitely.
And
you want to be consistent across
Andy,
the board.
I can confirm that the Alonsos have rounded first and straight set with their compatriots, the Paz brothers, just behind them.
So the Spanish. Can we attribute this to being Mediterranean conditions, or is the brown water of the river plate too choppy to compare to Mediterranean?
I wouldn't call it Mediterranean here. I don't know what I'd call it. It's very unique. You can't see the water very well. So maybe just core skills are even more important. I've just seen Burling and Schuck come round from, again, a very low position, a very low ley line, and they've jibe set. They're the only team to have jibe set. It looks to me like the course is skewed, so it's a very long starboard downwind. And the Burling and Schuck have taken a big gamble here by doing the opposite of conventional wisdom, by splitting completely, which is also conventional wisdom. So not the best day for them so far, but they're going to try and make hay away from everyone else on the downwind and just see if their boat speed can get them free.
Ben, where do you see Alderich and Jensen at the moment? In which position?
They look to me like they're sixth.
In sixth place.
So the Australians in about sixth place. They were leading for a brief period going up that beat, but they're there or thereabouts. And Marcus, talk us through what we're seeing there.
Well, I still have the Spanish in the lead. And in second place, I see another Spanish team. They're certainly having a good day. And in third place, I see the French, and in fourth, the Croatians.
Just to fill you in on the performance of the Spanish Alonso brothers in recent races, their last four races read 1-1-6-1. That's them leading this race. So if they were to win this race, their scores in the last four races will go 1-1-6-1. And as things stand, with Burling back in the teens, the Alonso brothers would become the new leaders of the World Championship if things were to stay as they are right now?
It looks like the wind has shifted very much to the left. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's gone very much to the left. It's not a square downwind. So with Burlington Tube jibe setting, they've really taken the odd way down. But almost everyone else, there's only a couple boats who have jibed at all so far, except for the leaders. Basically, everyone's doing the first 80% on the long jibe, and they'll come into the leeward marks and go around. I do see that it looks like they're getting ready to do a change of mark. But,
Hey, and by the
I don't
way,
see it in place yet.
looking at the overall leaderboard with the Alonsos in first place and Burling and Hugh in 20th, we've got a dramatic change in the leaderboard, where the Alonsos would be in first place with 46 points at the moment, and 10 points behind would be Burling and Hugh. So maybe a major change in fortunes right here, right now.
And I can confirm they're around the leeward mark in first still, and the breeze has built a little bit, and they're heading out to the short side.
Well,
we've got a new windward mark.
Ben, you questioned the wisdom of that jibe set as they made that, and it just got worse and worse for Burling and Tuke, didn't it? Bearing in mind that big shift. I mean, not only did that jibe set look a little bit of a shaky decision at the time, but it's just got worse and worse for them, having broken away from the fleet. Would that be correct?
Well, I can tell you they are all the way down to their knot, trapping as hard as they can to even make the leeward marks now. So not only that, the shift has brought them in an overstanding position. So they probably took some bad air at their start, went to the short side, and now they've missed it. And they're having to squeeze very hard even to get up to the gate, which it seems like they're going to do. So they didn't go too far. But I can't tell exactly how many places they passed or otherwise, but yeah, shaky.
So do you know how the Spanish selections works? If the Alonsos were to win the World Championship, would that be, would they have it in the bag?
I think it's a 3-race series concluding, I don't know, you'd have to check on, if you go to 49er.org events page and pull up the Olympics, I've got as much detail as I've managed to acquire on every team in the results page. So people can follow along there on the various country selections. But I have a feeling it finishes in Palma, but no, them winning the World Championship would, I don't think, confirm anything here. I think it's this World, the next World, and possibly the Europeans or Palma in Europe next season.
Just update us on Burling and Tuke's progress. They were back in around 20th. How's it going for them now?
Much better now.
I currently, in the tracking, I currently have 11th place. That would be
they've managed to make this. They've managed to make the very far left gate by trapping as hard as they could the entire final 2/3 of this run, and they've done it. So they pulled it off and managed to pass by sailing on their own and getting on the inside of a downwind shift.
So not looking so bad for them after all. Good recovery after what looked like a tactical error. But in the end, do you think by sailing their own path rather than following the line of boats down, do you think they've ended up gaining from that?
Well, the opposite of upwind, if you dig in the wrong way, so to speak, of a downwind shift, is actually the shorter way around the wheel. So they actually did get the shift right down and also managed to sail mostly on their own. So if that's what they thought was going to happen, then they actually did it completely textbook. They'd have to be pretty confident to make that move, though.
I was going to say, I thought the textbook said that you do the long jibe first, and they didn't. They did the very short jibe first, and they left themselves absolutely no runway for any wind changes after that, but they got away with it.
Well, in the tracking, they just rounded in 13th position here, which is, looking at the windward mark position, They came from 15th. Well, they're back down at 15th now, according to the tracking.
Well,
But I think
if
they're
we can
more in
start
touch
talking
with the
about
fleet now.
if we can start talking about overall trends, we sailed this morning now 150 degrees right of where we are, and the race committee moved the windward mark like 300 meters left of the first beat, if not farther. And yet Burling and Tuke are going to be the rightmost boat here very shortly. So I don't know if those guys had any other options or they just finally want to get some clear air after having to pinch for the first two races. But wouldn't you be betting on it continuing to go left, which is I think what I see if I look at the far left boats, Marcus. Maybe you can confirm that. But the Burling and Tuke are now the far right boat in what I think is a left shifting day.
Yep, they're certainly heading out to the right-hand side. Spanish are in the middle of the course. Well, actually, if you look at the windward mark, they're heading, yeah, quite far out to the left now. I don't think they're that far away from the ley line. And actually, Burling and Tuke are heading towards the middle of the course in terms of where the wind comes from. Because the windward mark's really shifted far to the right now.
No, the left, Marcus. There's a substitute windward mark.
Oh, there's a substitute mark.
And Marcus, we can see there's the leaders have really taken a hard left turn. It looks like the breeze has gone really hard left for some of them, but there's a boat on the far right that hasn't affected yet. So we're seeing those different wind angles across the race course. I don't know if you can see that, Ben.
Well, I thought I could see it. I'm on the far right of the course here, and about the 10th place ladder. But I think it's gone left during the race and continued to go left up this last beat. But you guys can see from the track slightly better than I can.
I mean, there's dramatic shifts in the wind looking at those angles here. It's super dramatic. There's at least 20 degrees shifts going on. It's quite rough.
I think we're looking at a different Spanish boat in the lead now, aren't we, Marcus?
It's Spain 46. You help me out here. That is...
Well, go to the yellow boat, top of screen to the right. Is that not another Spanish boat?
Yes, that's Paz Blanco.
I think those are our new leaders, aren't they? Paz brothers.
Ben, could you please mute yourself when you're not speaking? So quiet.
So that's Ben bumping around out on the water, on the very choppy waters of the River Plate. And the Paz brothers are tacking back towards the previous leaders, the Alonso brothers. So the battle of two Spanish brother teams here. And as Ben said earlier, Anton Paz, the crew on the new leaders, is a gold medalist from 2008 in the Tornado and made the switch to the 49er not long afterwards, and hasn't managed to replicate that kind of gold medal performance in the 49er, but a very golden race for them in these conditions right now. And a nice bit of a lead now for the top two Spanish teams.
Burling and Tuke keep climbing up the ladder. They're in 10th place now, 10th, 11th, just about.
Which puts them very close on points for the world title. There's just 2 points in it between the Alonso brothers and Burling and Tuke in the overall standings, and a massive gap, more than 30 points back to the Lange brothers from Argentina in third place overall. So
you can have a look at the overall leaderboard. I mean, preliminary, and since Burling and Tuke have caught back up to 11th place, Alonso's are still in the lead overall, but their advantage has shriveled up a bit. Bad race for the Germans. Japanese are not catching up. Not a good race for them either. Down in 19th place when it comes to qualifying for the Olympic spot. Just a brief look at the overall results. Burling and Tuke heading out to the right-hand side again.
So it's a pretty ordinary
race-
day for New Zealand, or it's a sub-average day by their high standards for Burling and Chuk. But
The race has gotten very spread out here. I mean, this is supposed to be Gold Fleet. It's supposed to be every inch matters. But I don't think the two boats within 5 boat lengths of each other anywhere on the course right now.
what do you think's done that in particular?
Well, I think the combination of just being very shifty and very puffy means that, there's just a ton of routes up the course. We can see, you can see one Olympic on the far left and Burling on the far right, so no one's got any clue what's going on. And everywhere, just trying to pick up any shifts and any puff they can.
And earlier you said it's hard to see the water, and I'm assuming you can actually see the water, but it's the wind on the water that's hard to see. So what is it about the wind that's so difficult to see here? Why doesn't it show up like it does at other venues? Is it the color of the water that makes it harder?
Yeah, it's just dull. So,
Muddy.
I asked if the
Is it muddy and murky?
Yeah, it's silty. It's it's river water, with obviously flowing into the ocean, but it just doesn't sheen the way we're used to it. And I bet you, if you sailed here a lot, you'd probably figure it out a little bit. But it's just different than what these guys are used to.
And if you look at any of the photos on the 49er.org site, you'll see what we mean. I mean, it's instantly recognizable. The brown waters of the River Plate. I can't think of anything else like it, really. So
no, nowhere that we sail.
No. I mean, you've got Matthias Capizano, one of the photographers out there. I mean, he takes some amazing photos, and generally all his pictures have brown water in them. So just tell us.
He was jumping in the water for some of his photos this week.
Wow, that's commitment to the cause. Just update us on what's happening, because the Spanish are first and second. Just tell us how things are going between the top two in this race at the moment.
The Paz brothers miles ahead, probably 100 meters over the Alonso brothers, who are in turn 200 meters ahead of the French and Croatians. So they're both sailing down the both Spanish and the French are sailing down the middle of the course right now, none of which are putting any pressure on each other. And we've got the Croatians round next. They jibe set. We've got a lot of teams jibe setting now. It must be the short way to the finish line now. It's just coming around in a pack, in the front of a pack. And he's really easy to spot. He's got a bright pink spinnaker. And here come Burling and Tuke. They are only probably 10th or something. I just saw Burling go around the windward mark, and he actually grabbed his leeward tiller extension, possibly like thinking of going for the jibe set and changing his mind midway. So Burling hasn't looked forward yet on this downwind. He's about 20 boat lengths down the run. He's just looking around, looking at the boats. I think the guys are looking at boats to see angle and pressure as opposed to the water. And yeah, Burling's head's on a swivel right now. So he's clearly looking for opportunities. He found a couple already in this race and in the first race. And he doesn't think it's over, I guess.
Well, he's already in 9th place.
So that's a good recovery by Burling and Chuk. But what about Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen, who were leading this race in the very early stages? Where are they lying now?
They're in 9th place. Their tracker is a little bit erratic. You know that we had some issues with the tracking down in Buenos Aires. Not that easy, and his tracker has been a bit on and off in this race. But we currently have him in 9th position. And we have Burling and Tuke in 10th. It's going a bit up and down. 7th position now, actually, on Outridge and Jensen. Also in picture, we can see Outridge and Jensen up here.
And they're looking good. They've jibe set, gone the short distance to the finish, and they look like they have pressure. Nathan's standing on his wing, and Goobs is sitting on the middle, so it's not exactly windy. But their spinnaker's full and drawing, and it seems to be relatively safe.
Ben, the Polish as a group are having a pretty good race in this one, aren't they?
The Poles, just scanning the field for them. Yeah, they're in Nathan's group on the downwind. That I think that might be
8th and 9th position currently.
Yeah, and I can see Janishevsky, so that's Poland 52. He's in the middle of the course. He straight set, I think, right around Burling, and now he's underneath, or he was just ahead of Burling, and he still is probably on the outside of him or on the same ladder line downwind. It's a lot of port for this downwind. So the guys are just trying to figure out when to take their starboard. I can see the French now are being aggressive and looking to get a little separation. Oh, that's the Belgian, sorry.
And how close is the leader to the finish now?
He's within a couple hundred meters. He'll be finishing shortly. Might be just coasting through now. I'm at the windward mark still. It's very difficult. With the boat so spread out, it's very difficult for me to drive through the course right now.
Well, for the Paz brothers, their previous two races in the finals were 23rd and 22nd place. So this is somewhat of an improvement on that.
And I can see they've gone through the finish line. Their spinnakers down now. So yeah, a nice bump for those two.
And that's going to put them up into 7th, possibly even 6th place overall. So that's done wonders for their overall standings. And as you say, Ben, the gaps are enormous now. Is there anybody that can attack the second Spanish boat, the Alonso brothers, for third, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think the top three are going to go through in the order you've got them on your leaderboard. I'd say the first bit of action is right around the Nathan Outeridge pack with the Poles, with Burling. Who else is in there? I think that's Dave Gilmore, GBR or AUS 7. That's the first bit of the race that looks competitive right now.
So the Alonso brothers are going to go across for second place. They were leading that race for an awful long time, but they gave up the lead to the other set of Spanish brothers, the Paz brothers, who won that race. One boat we haven't spoken much about, crossing in third place, is France 9. That's Diane and Christadis from France, taking third place in that race. But they are a long way back in the overall standings still. They are 24th, so no real threat in the overall standings. Right at the bottom of Gold Fleet, despite getting a third place in this race. And so the question now is, how will Burling and Chute be able to continue climbing up the rankings? They've had a good recovery in this race. They've got themselves just up into the top 10. But as Ben was just telling us, that's really where the battle is happening right now as they come down towards the finish. Burling and Chute caught up with a large cluster of boats that includes Polish teams, that includes Outridge and Jensen from Australia. So a lot of places to play for in a short space of time there.
I just brought up the overall preliminary leaderboard, but Ben, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think you want to zoom in on Eric Heil and Thomas Plosel here. They've come down straight set on the run, and they've now got themselves into the dogfight here for the next spot. They're not going to catch the Croatians, and they're not going to cross Dave Gilmore, but they're right back in the game into the Nathan Outeridge group, and I think that's a good surge for them. This is going to be a really interesting group on the way down to the finish. We've got about 8 boats in a pack. They all are going to have to do multiple jives to get to the finish line, which involves all the jiving on top of each other that we see near leeward marks and near finish lines. And a lot of them are in the hunt here. So I've just seen Gilmore jive on top of Heil, who soaked low, but then eventually did get caught by their wind shadow, and now he's continuing on. Leading the group is the Croatians who are underneath, but it's Poland 52, Tommy and Jake. are Marvel action heroes typically, and they are in a really commanding position here to take the group and gain the 5 points that comes with being ahead of the group. But when they drive back, they're going to have a couple guys that they're going to have to cross, though they will have starboard. We can see Nathan. Nathan's just pressing, and he also wants to get in front of that group. He's got a lot of rivals on this close side that I am, the port side, and he's going for his jibe now. And let's see how he does.
Well, looking at the preliminary overall results, Ben, it's quite interesting to see that the fight for this world title has gotten a lot closer. Burlington 2 currently in 11th position, and basically almost tied on points with the Alonso brothers. And I'm very surprised that with the results Highland Plüssel are getting in today, a 7th, a 13th. They're up in 6th place. Now, I doubt that result is right. But they're still in a comfortable 3rd place, more like 11th position now. Burlington 2 up in 8th place. Is that correct? Can you confirm that, Ben?
It looks to me that Outeridge is finished. Yeah, Burlington 2. Yeah, just ahead of Eric and Tommy for probably 8th, and Eric and Tommy will be 9th or 7th and 8th, something like that. Gilmore was the big loser from that group. He went from leading that pack at the windward mark to the back of the pack, and we see Pink skating around the outside. He's picked up a few points. Guys like Botten and Pole 42, Lucas Powell, and the Austrians all falling out of that group. Dylan Fletcher falling behind. So those are the important point twos. It's when you lose pack to 5 at the end of races that it really affects your standings. But Burlington 2 surged to the front. They had a really good race, considering where they started by normal standards.
Well, that really, really was tight from what was a very open race earlier on. From what you told us, Ben, with large gaps throughout the fleet, something caused the middle of that race to really bunch up down the final run. And as you said, that's a very critical moment in any race when you can win or lose so many places in such a tight spot.
I guess with an upwind current, it's going to stretch the fleet out on the upwinds, but condense it on the downwinds. And of course, with the wind shadows on the downwind being so large with the big spinnakers, the guys behind can work a little harder to work on the guys in front, and maybe that's what brought the fleet closer together.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Have you any idea of the strength of the current?
It's not tremendous. I mean, there's a big river flowing here, but it's a very large opening. I think it's only 1 or 2 boat lengths per minute.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
That's the bulk of the fleet finished. We've got Marco Grail as one of the trailers here. So halting his march up the leaderboard, which has been going on since day one a little bit. We've also got Argentine Mario Segers. He's been having a really good series so far. Great job at the South Americans, pulling off the top 10 here and then top 10 going into today. But after 2 poor races, he's not looking to be a contender anymore.
Ben,
just see the Phillips brothers.
It's looking at the mark rounding tables from this last race. It's quite interesting. I can bring that up actually. And by the way, anyone can go to 49erworlds2015.sapsailing.com to have a look at the data himself. But looking at who caught up in this race, one who stands out is the Australian team, Australia 400 Turner and Brake. They rounded the first windward mark in 16th place and caught up 8 places. And then Heil Plössl, they rounded 21st and caught up to 9th place, so even more, 12 places. And Burlington 2, they came around 15th and caught up 10. These 3 boats have caught up more than anyone else in the fleet, and certainly an impressive performance. Looking at the overall results, Alonso now has a 1-point lead in the overall standings over Burling and Tuke with 48 points, and then we have a big gap of more than 20 points to Highland Plösel. They still have a decent 10-point lead over the fourth place boat. So looks like I'm surprised we have this big spread in points, even though we haven't had that many races yet. It surprises me. Does that surprise you guys a little bit?
To have such a big spread?
Yeah, after 11 races, I mean, going into the medal race now, the first two couldn't be beaten by the third one anymore, and then the third one having a 10-point lead over the fourth place. I think that's quite a lot after 11 races.
It doesn't surprise me about Burling and Tuke. It does surprise me that Burling and Tuke have a rival for the world title with the Alonso brothers. I think that's a really incredible performance by them. The observation that I had after the first 2 or 3 days, and I think you had maybe it was after day 2 of the qualifiers, and I think you had a similar observation, Ben, was that there were so many relatively unknown names in the top 10 of the men's fleet, and if you started from 15th downwards, that sort of looked like a likely top 10 for a 49er World Championship. So many of the big names were fighting it out between 15th and 30th overall, and it looked like a very random regatta, except for the fact that those other favourites, Burling and Tuke, were right up at the front. Was that how you saw it, Ben? Because I think I read a comment along those lines.
Well, that's right. You know, we came into this. If you look at the 49er effects table after qualifying, the top 11 were all from nations that had qualified, and then there were 7 other nations that made Gold Fleet that are trying to qualify their nation. So you can surmise from that, given that last year's Worlds were where the first 10 spaces were given out, that the same teams were in the top 10 from the 2015 Worlds as had been in the 2014 Worlds. And in the 49er table, it was the complete opposite. We had 4 of the top 6 were all nations trying to qualify their nation. And many of the big names, many of the former Olympic champions and guys who are top 10 at the Olympics were all struggling to get into Gold Fleet. Guys like Pink, guys like Manu Dian, guys like Nathan Outteridge. So the real, what you might call the real rivals for the World Championship were already a long way behind Burling and Tuke. And as some of the pretenders fade away, guys like Mario Segers in '97, who was on a good run, but it probably wasn't going to hold given how big a leap it is to Gold Fleet. That top 10 is falling away. There's people falling away from it, which is creating these gaps we're seeing right now. I mean, not everyone can fall away. But, if you're Burling and Tuke, you're probably not too happy with how the Gold Fleet started. But you're also pretty happy that guys like the Austrians or maybe Lucas and Paolo Poland 42 or Eric Kyle and Thomas Klosel, who are all right up there, haven't blown it away either. So you're just treading water and letting other guys fall away.
Ben, what's the scenario for the next race? What are the conditions like now?
To my eye, it's gone even farther left, and the wind speed is the same. So I would assume, like in this committee, they've already got their line set, and I think they'll just roll into the next one. But I don't think we can expect the overall conditions haven't changed at all. It's just general trend left with patchy and very middling or very light breeze of sort of 6, 7, 8 knots.
And Ben, do you think we're in for one more race or 2 more races?
I have no way to guess other than their intention was to do 4, and I don't know why they would prioritize anything else other than Gold Fleet racing. So if I were David, I'd go for 4. But he's his own man, and will do what he thinks is right.
Marcus, do you think we should take a break? What's your view?
Yeah, I suggest we take a break until the next race is on, and we'll tune back in as soon as we get any indication of when that will be. I anticipate just probably a 10 to 15 minute turnaround time, and we'll be back for that.
for viewers that want to keep track of how things are going, if they want to keep track of it for themselves, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well,
Sorry to interrupt you guys. We can still take a break, but the orange flag is up, so I think we'll see the yellow flag shortly.
Okay, just for the viewers, if they go to 49er Worlds 2015 sapsailing.com, they can scroll down to the bottom on the main page, and there is a little button that says Race Management. And if they click on that race office here, they actually get the overview of the schedule. So that's pretty handy to find out when the next race is on. It's not scheduled here yet, but it will be in a minute, and we'll get back as soon as that is happening. We could actually leave this on screen, and as soon as a flag comes up here, we'll be back for the next race.
See you then.
1. And we're back.
Welcome back to our coverage of the 49er World Championships in Argentina. It's been 2 very difficult races so far in quite light conditions. The Spanish doing very well in the race just now. We're just into the start of the 3rd race of the day. Ben Ramoka, what do you see out there on the water? Who would you rather be, on the right or on the left?
Well, certainly at the start, the boat end of the line seemed very biased. That's how the fleet set up, and that's how they started. The trend all day has, I think, been left, though. I think the race committee moved the course another 20 degrees left just at just before this race. And the guy who got the best start in the middle of the line was Nathan Outteridge. Great lane, great speed, no one bothering him. So he's off to the races. And then the other guy we've been keeping our eyes on is the Alonso brothers. They started right at the boat and went right immediately, along with the poles. So even though the race course keeps shifting left, guys keep liking the right side of it. I can't really explain it. Maybe we'll try and chat with someone in between the next race. So that's what's going on.
But I think there's a super interesting battle going on the right-hand side of the course. Burling and Tuke have tacked. I don't think it was a forced tack, really. They could have continued out on the right-hand side, but they decided to converge back into the middle, whilst we see the Spanish team, 46, the Alonso brothers, who are currently in the lead, heading further out to the right-hand side. Burling and Tuke now going back in that direction. So this battle on the right-hand side is very, very interesting, I reckon, how that's going to pan out. At the moment, we see a boat grabbing the leader line. That is the Polish team, 52, Januszewski and Nowak. They're getting slightly lifted there. And let me focus in on Burling and Tuke, and we can see a typical situation here. We've seen that very often, where they just go higher than a boat close to them, so they're converging into them. That's happening right now. And now we see the Alonsos tacking over from the right-hand side. They'll cross Burling and Tuke.
It certainly looks, the way the Alonsos are sailing, that these good performances can't be called flukes. I mean, they keep on slotting them in. The last 4 races that they've done now, they've scored 1-1, 6-2, and now they're up in the top few of this race. So these seemingly random conditions, well, they don't seem to be random for the Spanish Alonsos.
And they're taking quite an aggressive stance with the Kiwis, not giving an inch, keeping the right side of the group that they're in the lead of. So they seem to know what they want, as well as being able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we've got it right in the middle of the screen right now. A beautiful battle going on right there between the two. How's that going to pan out? That's man against man now. And who's faster right here, right now? That is really, really interesting. It does look like there's a slight shift to the right, favoring the Spanish team. It does look like. Sorry, Ben.
I can tell you the entire fleet is on starboard right now, of the leaders, anyways, with 2 packs. One led by Nathan Outteridge, the second with Burling and the Polish and the Alonsos. And Nathan's group is hoping for a strong left shift, which will be the final shift of the beat. And Burling's group is hoping just to hold, at which point I think they would cross. So there's a little bit left to play for in this beat, but otherwise you'd have to say that the Alonsos are in for another good one.
Well, I just see randomness on this race course, and I can't see how you can make any firm predictions. But I mean, what you've just said, Ben, it does confirm just how impressive the Alonsos are in these conditions.
Well,
there's a lot of racing.
As random as it is, certainly they're fighting men against men here. They're staying close to each other. They know that they're the ones who are going to fight for the title here. So they're trying to control randomness by just staying close and controlling the opponent. Looks like Peter Burling has the upper hand a little bit, maybe a little bit more speed on him. He's edging closer to past the Spanish boat. Let's look at the ley line, but maybe the Spanish went a little bit too far. I think they did go too far.
Marcus, you may want to tune in and just do a quick spot check of Eric Heil. He's as far back as anyone's been all day in any race. I don't know exactly what happened, but he's in rough shape as our third overall right now.
Wow. And that only plays further into the hands of the match racing duo from New Zealand and Spain, the two contenders, because it was the Germans Heil and Plussel that were lying in third overall. But now it's another Spanish team, the Paz brothers, who won the previous race, lying second in this race, that move up into third overall. But they're almost 30 points behind the second place Alonso's in the overall standings. So it seems a little bit premature to be talking about a match race for the title with a day and a half of racing still to go.
Yeah, but I think they're just staying in control because maybe because of the randomness, they're thinking, okay, let's not let them get too far away, and it seems to favor Burling and Tuke at the moment, who seem to have a little bit more speed, and as they stay close to them, they just can edge past them.
And Ben, the other factor to consider here is that we're into the fourth race of the final. So this is the race in which the discard kicks in. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And possibly more interestingly at the top of this race course is who's going to get the last shift of the day, or the last shift of the beat, because that's what they're all fighting for now in a shifty place. And both Burling and Alonso, seem to be favoring slightly different sides of this course, or to get the different accelerations. So let's see what happens there. Stay on the fight between those two, and it should be a good one. Very busy mark round.
So a split developing between the Kiwis and the Spanish. With the Spanish.
We can hear the shouting in the background, live from Argentina. So, who, from your point of view, we're 1 minute behind with the tracking, but Ben, just tell us who rounded first, the Spanish or the Kiwis?
It was neither. It was the Polish, but it's going to be close here. I don't think I should give it away to our viewers. I think you're going to see Burling come in from the top left and the Spanish on the top right, and then a little bit of action.
Yeah, it's really, really close. It does look like Burling can make it through. It does look like he can round ahead. Tack. So he did make
and now
it
the
up,
Alonsos go for the roll on the hoist. The Alonsos are going high, while as Burling and Tuke are doing a normal set, and they're trying to get around over top. But the Alonsos don't have their chute up quite all the way. They were one pull short, and they've given up and let Burling and Tuke escape down to leeward and stayed clear, so there was no foul.
So they're not bowing under the pressure of battling with the world number ones for the world title. It sounds like the Alonsos believe that they have as much right to the world title as Burling and Tuke.
Well, with the caveat that they probably have no idea what the score is.
Do they have a coach out on the water?
Say again?
Do the Spanish have a coach on the water watching them?
There's a joint Spanish coach, yeah. The longtime coach is here with the three teams.
Surely that coach is giving them some idea of how they stand in the overall standings.
Well, they know they're sailing well, that's for sure. Whether they can keep track of how many points Burling and Tuke have is another question. But at this stage of the regatta, we likely, including this race, have 5 more fleet races plus a medal race. They're still, I guess, just looking to double down on conditions that are clearly in their favor and going to push it to the max. They must have an incredible confidence right now, given their last series of races and the fact that the conditions are still the same. They bossed that start on the right side. They obviously wanted the boat. They obviously wanted to go right. and they played the right side of the beat the entire way up, all the way to the last shift. Now, Furling and Tuke managed to keep up with them, bouncing slightly left of them and maybe having slightly better speed or points at times. But I think the Alonsos really favor their boat speed and their handle on the situation today.
Well, with the discard kicking in, we've got the live results up now, and a second place for Burling and Tuke. They established their lead again with 10 points ahead of Alonso. And the Langer brothers climbing into third place quite solidly over Eric Heil, who's dropping down to fifth currently.
Yeah, I can confirm the Langer brothers are in a great lane downwind. Going to have some nice options to get around this leeward mark, most likely, whereas Eric Heil is in dead last, just looking for an opportunity to catch up and get back in this fight. How are the Austrians doing today, Nico and Nico? I know they had high hopes for this championship. They were one of the first teams here to start training, and they've always looked to convert their World Cup success and World Cup world ranking stature into good world championships. Are they staying in the hunt?
Well, they're down in 13th place at the moment, and I'm looking for them overall.
They're sixth.
They're in sixth place with 83 points, which is in contention, I suppose, to the lead. 85 points now. Still a bit could happen. Well, the podium's quite far away. Langer brothers, 67 points. And they're currently on the right-hand side of the course. Burling and Tuke on the left.
On this downwind, Burling and Tuke have really closed the gap on the Polish for the lead. The Polish had to wait till they got inside room at the leeward mark. But Burling and Tuke are now close on their heels. They've put a few boat lengths advantage on the Spanish, who are now going to have to fight it out with the likes of Outeridge and Jensen on the next beat. Whereas Burling and Tuke have rounded cleanly. So I don't know if the Kiwis were trying to make life harder for the Spanish, but whether they've intentionally done it or not, life is definitely going to be a little bit trickier for the Spanish on this next beat. More likely to be chasing forward for the lead.
The Austrians are in some trouble against Fletcher and Sign on the right-hand side. Bad rounding for them. Fletcher and Sign coming in. Actually, it looks like there was an incident right there.
I wish I could give you a heads up. I missed it.
Polish
but I
rounding.
Can say that the
Polish rounding first, closely followed by Burling and Tuke. Alonso brothers in third place. Well, that's going to be interesting rounding with regards to the Alonso brothers against Outeridge and Jensen. Coming in now. Who can round first? Who wants to go to the right-hand side? The Polish are going to head out to the right-hand side. New Zealand following out on the right-hand side, and Spain and the Australians coming in. Spain's going to have to jibe there. Are they trying to jibe ahead? Yep, they are. They're going inside. Nice rounding by them. Big question is, can they go close to the mark? Australians heading out to the left-hand side. What do you see on the left-hand side out on the course, Ben? Does it look promising there?
It looks even across. There's no way to look upwind and see a difference side to side. Guys are mostly using sailboats.
That's the brown water problem we were talking about earlier, is it? It's just very difficult to read.
Well, that, and I don't think there is a tremendous difference between the two sides. And Burling and the Alonsos came from pretty right in this first beat, whereas Nathan Outteridge came from fairly left in the first beat, and they all ended up rounding pretty close together. So on top of it being difficult to read, I don't think there's that much to read.
So Nathan Outteridge and Ian Jensen, they were the first boat to go round the left-hand side, and they've done a hitch up towards the left, but now they tack back into the middle of the course. And gradually they're hauling their way back up the leaderboard. They've now broken into the top 10 for the first time, and they're in 8th overall as things stand. So they're making gradual progress, but they're not looking that special this week. Do you think that Ian Jensen has fully recovered from the bug that he had earlier on in the week? Is he back up to full strength?
He's back up to a good strength. I wouldn't say full strength. If you're that dehydrated, it surely takes a few days. But yesterday would have been a relatively restful day for the guys. Gold Fleet stayed onshore all day while the Silver Fleet had to pick up the mess that was left as that storm rolled through. So I would imagine that Ian, as fit as he is able to sit at a pretty high level today. And to be honest, sailing really well today. I can see they're going to be in contention for the lead of this race by the time we get to the top mark. As we see actually both teams completely switch sides from the first beat. On the first beat, we saw Outteridge favoring the left and Burling favoring the right, and now we can see the exact opposite as Outteridge is heading right and Burling's heading left. I guess we'll see fairly shortly what pans out, but I think right now Burling's got an advantage on the Poland 42, Lucas and Powell. So unless Outteridge can pull something off on his side of the course, I think that Burling's going to have this race and be able to sail away with it.
We haven't said much about the Alonso brothers lately. How are they getting on now?
Let me pick them out.
They are hanging in. They're hanging in. They're on the left.
They're on the left in 5th place.
Yeah, they're definitely, like I said, as they were coming into the leeward marks, they were going to be under increasing pressure, and it doesn't seem like they escaped around the leeward marks very cleanly. And they're now just sort of under hips on Burling and Toots. Looks like they're going to minimize separation in front of the fleet. They're going to score another great race, a top 5. The teams in contention here there's a bit of a gap after the Alonsos. They've probably got 50 or 100 meters to play with. And with the speed they've got today, they ought to be able to hold that. It's a little windier now. We see teams full trapping and pulling on some bang. And they're still having to shift around, and the crews are having to move forward, or the skippers are moving in at times. But it's definitely filled out, and I don't see as many crazy shifts. I can just the Lucas Prisbatek and Powell Kolodinsky, they've just managed to cross Outteridge and Jensen. So Burling, I think, is going to be in the lead here.
So do you think that
he's already taken the lead now? Coming in from the left-hand side, does look like that side is favored just very slightly. I can highlight here on the screen that there was a slight bend in the wind here. Nothing as dramatic as we've seen before, but that's probably paid off a little bit over the Australians, and he's lifting now.
Ben, do you think when
Sorry to interrupt you, and he's lifting dramatically, and it makes you wonder, how did he anticipate that happening? Were there any boats where you could tell that could be happening?
No, if you remember at the bottom of the mark or the bottom of the leg, you asked me to look upwind, and there wasn't a single boat upwind on this course anywhere. So they just got it. I'm not sure exactly what they saw. So they're going to take an 8 boat length lead into this windward mark over what looks like a nice fight between Outteridge and Prisbatek, and maybe the Alonso's close behind. So they'll probably just be able to sail away with this and be able to see how many more points they can accumulate over the Alonso's.
Interesting that Outeridge and Jensen currently have the highest average speed in this race, 7.06 knots.
So
But
they're the only ones to average over 7 knots.
Yeah, but they've covered some extra distance.
Well,
They're now
tacking.
tacking, and in a little bit of a bad moment because the New Zealand guys have lifted and they've now gone back, and that's exactly where the Australians have tacked when the wind turned back to the right.
We were talking earlier, Andy, about Outeridge's America's Cup duties, and I was hanging out with him earlier this week. He's got to be 5 kilos heavier than he was in the last quadrennial. I mean, he's actually got. You can see he probably goes to the gym now, even. And
well, that's interesting because when I interviewed Nathan about 2 months ago, when he was doing a GC32 regatta down in Marseille, he said, I asked him about the gym work, and he said the only thing I can do to help the other guys is be as skinny and as light as I can, because I don't have anything to contribute there on the race boat. So the lighter I am, the more muscle can go on other people's shoulders. So that doesn't really square with what his America's Cup requirements are. So I'm not sure why that would be.
Yeah, well, he seems on the heavy compared to what you might expect, or compared to what he looked like before. And I just can't help but think that I think Burling and Tuke are in a lot of these guys' heads, and they see Burling as a big, tall, strong guy, very lean, of course. And the teams are very heavy, and I think that's one of the reasons we're able to see more light air specialists than maybe typically. And as the wind has got into double trapping strength here, we see guys like Outeridge sailing faster and maybe covering a little more distance to do it, but they're making their weight work for them here, whereas they're just not able to do it when it was half a knot or a knot lower like in the previous races.
So it's interesting what you say about Burling and Tuke getting in the other sailors' heads. And Marcus, I think you and I, when we were sailing 49ers earlier on in the nearly 20-year life of the 49er class, we've often wondered what the weights of the front runners were. In the early days, it was Chris Nicholson and Dan Phillips, for example. And whoever's the top dog in the class tends to set the trend for the rest of the fleet to follow. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's the whole way the optimum weight of a class is defined. It's almost like fashion, that someone becomes successful. There could be a strong win season, and the heavy teams are doing better, and then the rest of the fleet thinks, oh, we got to get heavy as well, and then a new set point develops of where people want to be, and that's the new reality. You got to go with it, because if you break away from it, you have some conditions where you can perform and some where you can't. And generally, the tendency as a class grows older is, in my opinion, that people get lighter, because obviously if you can perform in stronger winds being lighter, you have an advantage in lighter winds. But the 49er has seen some changes in rigs, and that creates a new situation, and it's another pattern that you have where bigger rig obviously means more weight, and I think the teams are now heavier than they used to be back in 2004, for example.
Oh, I'm sure that's true. And Ben, I mean, you went through the 2008 cycle to do that, what was expected to be a very light wind Olympic Games in China. And actually for the 49ers, largely it was, except for the medal race. Those were extraordinary times, weren't they? I mean, we've never seen anyone so skinny, and I doubt you've ever been so skinny as you were in 2008.
Yeah, I got down to my grade 11 weight there for the Olympics at 161 pounds, which in real money, we sailed the games at 140 kilos. But guys like Outeridge and Warrer, who won, were down at 135 or 136. And I bet you there isn't a team here in Gold Fleet that's lighter than 150 now, with probably the average closer to 156. So the introduction of the new rig, bigger rig, the trend, like Marcus was saying, of guys like Burling having success, moves the set point. And then, of course, after that, it's game theory. To be to be skewed from the average, it's just setting yourself up for defeat. So you've got too much to lose and too little to gain by doing it. So everyone just has to match. And, I'm surprised that it's quite so heavy, because we tend to see a number of locations that have wind speeds like we've seen this week of under 10 knots. But perhaps with the big rig performing well and the guys getting a handle on it, they're just able to draw enough power at the lighter air settings now that they just need the grunt when it gets up into the 11, 12, 13 to 15 range.
Hey, I want to throw in a question, and we've seen the start. We saw how Burling and Tuke were close to the Alonso brothers after the start, staying close to them, waiting for their opportunity to break away. And now they're well ahead, 170 meters to the Alonso brothers. Is this maybe a defining race for this World Championship, where they do their breakaway again? What do you think?
Marcus, if I was a cynic, I'd say the point already happened, because if I was a cynic, I'd say that there was a chance every chance the Alonsos weren't going to pull it off for a whole series anyways. I know that's not a very charitable thing to say, but with the company of Burling and the others, that's just history, I suppose, and everyone's trying to rewrite history and make their own. But this could be the one that we mark as a changing point, but I have a feeling the regatta, even though it seemed close, was already over. Just as we say that, I can confirm a very close finish between the Alonso brothers and the Lange brothers. So why don't you guys zoom in on that little piece, and I see a little high five between the Lange brothers as they pull off another good race on home waters. Between them and Lucas, got to be looking good in the country qualification battle, with Eric Heil having a rough race.
And just remind us of that's a battle within a battle, isn't it? We've got the World Championship, which is what we're talking about mostly, but for others, they're also thinking about the secondary goal, which could well be their primary goal. Is never mind about where they finish in the World Championship. Where are they finishing in terms of grabbing one of the remaining spots for Rio 2016? Just tell us about the nations that are involved there.
Well, I assume at the top of the fight is Poland 42, Lucas and Powell. For the Poles, I would imagine it's their primary goal. I mean, they have put in a huge effort in 49er this quadrennial, and to not qualify would just be a disaster. And of course, Europe, the country qualification will be very difficult. Sweden already isn't there.
By the way, we're right at the finish that you spoke about, and the Lange brothers, they just came cruising in the last second, shortening the distance. This is incredible to look at. If I look at the difference in angle here, the Lange brothers coming down here, and the Alonsos, it looks like they went too far. Why did they go so far?
Well, maybe because the Spanish were coming in on starboard. Maybe they felt they couldn't come right in at the mark.
You reckon they wanted to try to have inside room? That's
well,
right.
Maybe they felt that if they came in right at the mark, that they were going to be forced to jibe away, whereas maybe they felt they could get across and get their bow across before. I don't know.
The tracking actually has the Alonsos ahead of the Lange brothers, but I think the Lange brothers were happy anyway with that race.
Well, I couldn't tell. I was very close to the line, and I couldn't tell who beat who. So race committee could have called it either way in my mind.
And so another very good race for the Alonso brothers. It's going to keep them in second overall by a very comfortable margin. But the team that was in third overall going into that race, Highland Plussel, they had a terrible start to this race. And they pulled back a few, but this is a finish in the late teens, I think, for Highland Plussel.
Yeah, in 18th place, they're actually just finishing now, looking at the tracking. Terrible race for them. I'm going to bring up the overall leaderboard to see what that means for them.
Well, and Marcus, let's not forget that the Germans need to qualify here as well, and the Highland Plussel are the only Germans in the regatta right now who can do that. So there's some extra pressure there, along with their own ambitions to score points in the German qualifying system, and the rest. So there's an awful lot riding on these races for Highland Local.
Yeah, looking at the overall leaderboard now, we see 33 points on Burling and Tuke, 12-point lead over the Alonsos. Lange with 67 points in third place, a fair way away from Alonso's. And Prispatek and Krajinski in fourth place with 71 points, and then Highland Plösel in fifth place with 72 points, which means they can still climb on the podium. So can probably the Austrians, Delicat and Resch. I'd say Outridge and Jensen a bit out of range there, 20 points behind the podium places. And the first British team in ninth place. Maybe, Andy, you can comment a little bit on the development of the English squad in the 49er. There were certainly times when that squad was a lot stronger.
Yeah, there was a period for about 10 years where Great Britain always won at least one medal, sometimes two. Sometimes had two teams on the podium of a world championship. It was just unheard of for Great Britain not to get someone standing on the podium of a world championship. But that hasn't been the case for quite a long time now. Not since the days of Stevie Morrison and Ben Rhodes winning the World Championships in 2007 and pretty much everything else in 2007. They had a shocking Olympic Games, going in as a hot medal prospect and finishing ninth in China. And since then, it's been pretty slim pickings for the British squad. Ever since then, we've had a lot of good teams there or thereabouts. Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne have won the European Championships, if you discount the likes of Burling and Tuke or Outridge and Jensen actually winning the outright open European title. But Fletcher and Syne showing signs, and then Pink and Bithell getting a third place at the European Championships earlier this year in Porto, and Fletcher and Syne falling away a little bit in the last year. But Pink and Bithell unable to hammer home that advantage in Portugal. They're still very inconsistent as well. So it's a pretty outside prospect of Great Britain winning an Olympic medal in Rio 2016 as things stand.
All right, Ben, anything you want to add to, I assume this was the final race of the day, or is there one more in the bag? Ben, are you still with us? I think Ben has dropped out.
Okay. Well, I think what I wanted to ask Ben was whether the Austrians need to qualify, or whether they did that already in Santander at the previous World Championships. I think maybe the Austrians have already got a place for Rio 2016, in which case, if we look at third, fourth, and fifth, Argentina, Poland, and Germany, my understanding, and it is immensely complicated, my understanding is there are 3 places up for grabs in Argentina, and then you've got to go down some way below that, assuming the Austrians have qualified, to see the next nation that's looking for that spot, and that could well be the Croatians in 11th. So I wonder if Argentina and Poland and Germany can start to feel quite secure about wrapping up one of those spots for Rio 2016.
Sorry.
And this is a good return to form in the latter stages of the 2015 season, isn't it, for Highland Plösel? Because they've been beset by injury, they've had problems, but they got a bronze medal at the Olympic Test Regatta in Rio. Then Eric Heil came home from that with really nasty skin infection on his legs. How's he doing from that, Marcus?
I think that he's recovered. I met him a few weeks afterwards, and he seemed all fine. That went well, and I think they're going to be happy with qualifying the nation for the Olympics at this event. I don't know if they got sick on this event. Actually, I knew a lot of people, a lot of sailors have due to some, I don't know, was it food poisoning or dirty water? It's kind of similar to what happened in Rio. But I think their main focus is to qualify the nation. They're currently lying in 5th place. They had a terrible day, if you think about it. 7th, 13th, 10th, and 18th place. They can do a lot better than that. And let's see what's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, I'm sure at one point they were lying up in. Well, in fact, they're not far off third, are they? So, I mean, they have been in third place overall at some point today, and they're only 5 points off that. So, a bronze medal is still well within their reach.
Yep. Well, to me, it looks like that was it for the day with the men. And I think we're going to be back tomorrow with the FX and the 49er on that final day, where we could see probably 8 races happening over the day.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I'm calling in Ben one last time to see whether he can give a final wrap up of what's happening out on the water. He's probably on his way back in. Let's see if he gets back on.
and while you're calling, I'll just say that for me, the sailors of the day were the Alonso brothers, like second overall when the second discard kicked in. And
Bienvenido al buzón de voz claro
to get rid of
de
their
116.
race 10 today.
It's just the answering machine, by the way, on Ben. Though, so he's dropped out. Sorry to interrupt, Andy. You wrap it up.
No, but yeah, the Alonso's in the past 5 races 11624. So the highest performing team over the last 5 races. Can they close that 12-point gap tomorrow on Burling and Chuk? Ben Ramoka said quite clearly that he didn't think so. He just doesn't think anybody can match the consistency of the Kiwis, who look like they're on track for their 3rd consecutive World Championship victory.
Yeah, amazing performance. Going to be an exciting day tomorrow. We had a nice warm up today. Things are working now, and I'm looking forward to the final races of this World Championship tomorrow.
We will see you back there then.
Thank you, and bye-bye.